There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out, slowly feel all that's around you, all that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite, yeah, when we unite, oh, we unite, yeah, yeah, when we unite, yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Yes, indeed. You are welcome here, and so are you. It is time to do what we do every Tuesday. Here I go. I don't know why. Stop. Sometimes it just happens. I've been hijacked. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good day to you wherever you are in the world. Woo, help me, Jesus. That was John Stringer. You are welcome here. To find out more about him, go to his website, johnstringerinc.com, johnstringerinc.com. I am excited to be here. Why? We got a great show. We've been letting this show's been marinating. We've been cooking it for the past 4 days. Woo, the smell. You are going to be fed. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and giving yourself permission to be transformed. I am Ade, your transformational beingness artist. Welcome to another episode of Being You. No, actually, it's a new name now. Just tweaked a little thing. It's now called Ade Presents Being You, the journey back to yourself. It is season 2, episode 13, Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. And just real quick, let me tell you, those of you who don't know, I now have another show that I host on Thursdays. And that is actually now, it was a different time, but see, everything's always growing and expanding. So on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, you join me on Facebook. What is it? Facebook page, Being You podcast page. And it's actually for people who are ready, willing to do some soul work. There's always something seeking to be birthed. There's always something that's calling for your attention. And sometimes we may not hear it well. We may be distracted by people, places, and things. If you are ready, willing, and available to listen to what is calling you, what is seeking to be birthed, because you're pregnant, whether you know it or not, whatever your medical history is, whether you're male or female, you're pregnant. So you might as well just open up and breathe because the baby's coming out. And I'm your midwife. I'm your doula. That's right. I'm going to help you breathe and push. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, like birth, physical birth. So yes, every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get on the hot seat of transformation, you can send me a message through the Facebook page, Being You podcast. Such a mouthful. Or you can send me a message on my website right now. It's lifecoachade.com, lifecoachade.com. Let me know. We'll have a pre-interview. I don't need to know what wants to be birthed. I don't need to know what the issue is, what you're going through or growing through. The audience and I will hear about it on the day of. We'll do some soul work. We're going to go deep. You got to be ready to do the work. You got to be ready for whatever comes up. And I told you, when it comes up, you're going to grab it and you go, oh my God, I'm so grateful. Have you ever seen a mother give birth? Like, I can't do this. And she's screaming, you did this to me. But when the baby comes out, she's like, oh, I love you so much. That's how you're going to be when you finish with me. You will think I've given birth to a child. No, I'm just a good learner. I told God this lifetime, nah, I had too many kids in my previous lives. Like, nah, I just want to be independent of all that drama. Can I help other people give birth? God said, oh, yeah, that's a good compromise. Since I am you and you are me, why not? All right, let's keep this moving. This is Ade Presents Being You. I have a guest, and I'm excited. Ade Presents Being You is all about reminding you to check up, to check out, to check in and see how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world, and how you see the world in you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Kwali. Nice to see you. You refuse to break your own record. Nice to see you, New Jace. Life is good, is getting better. Let's see. I think I got everything that I need to tell you. Those of you who are listening to or watching on Facebook, maybe listen to the audio, I want you to know that being, it's going to take a little while. Ade presents Being You, and Ade present The Heart of the Matter, which is the one on Thursday. Both are streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Facebook at the Being You podcast, and on YouTube, like New Jace is in there. It is Life Conversations Media. That's the channel. Check it out. And if you want to catch up with all the other shows, you can find it on Facebook, but it's easy if you go to YouTube. All right. All right. What else do I need to tell you? I need to tell you that I have a question. I bet you don't know the answer. I bet you don't. You think you do. But guess what? If you do, I dare you to answer the question. Well, the question is, what is black wealth? Black wealth. just racist. That is just discriminatory. Why are we talking about black wealth? Yeah. Well, keep listening. You discover. If you're not uncomfortable, you're learning nothing. And that's what this show is about. Anyway, I have my guest with me. She has been here before. I'll read her bio and I'll tell you a little bit more about her. Her name is Tempest Charles. She's an educator. She's an intuitive with an MBA. She knows she ain't nothing to be with. You hear that? Somebody bleeped me. I don't know why they're censoring me. I want to be free. She's nothing to be. Oh, come on now. Okay, she's nothing to be flipped with. Okay, they let that one. That went through. And I describe her really as a student and a teacher of life. She supports people in their journey of joyfully living one foot in and one foot out. That just seems painful. I think just be all the worlds together. You know. Anyway, she's a wise soul. She has learned the world of the material and the world of spirituality. She has been here before. And, when somebody's like, when she came the first time, I was like, I need to know a little bit more about you. So I just created a whole show to find out more about her. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, psychics and skeptics, physical beings and non-physical beings, because there's an intuitive in the house. Help me welcome my dear friend, Tempest Charles. If I slow down, I get her name right.
Hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate it. It is good to be back in living color.
Yes, it is good. So I'm getting a message. India, let me know if the feedback is still there. And if it is, then I can do something else. So good to see you, Tempest.
You as well. It's good to be back and talking about a hot topic.
A hot topic. Black wealth.
Yes.
I mean, why would you think black wealth? Black people got everything they need. People are privileged. They should be grateful.
All relative.
Let me slow down. So, as you know, this show is about really reconnecting people to themselves and how we live in the world and how the world expresses itself through us. And you've heard this before, but every day is a new day. And there's something about the name that I really love. And I think names are very special. So when I meet people and they tell me their name, especially if it's a different name, I want to know what it means because it tells a lot about the person. And in the Western world, we don't always put a lot of attention to names, but I think it's important. So, Tempest, Tempe, what's the meaning of your name? What does it mean to you?
Well, the definition, because I do love words and definition, of tempest is a violent storm, usually including wind and rain. And it is also a play, a Shakespeare play, and a wonderful piece of music. So many things have had this name too. Really, my family, we're big on names. Everyone in my family has a name of importance, and almost everyone has changed their name or changed the spelling of their name.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been some adjustment. So there's been the given name and then the sort of chosen name. But yeah, so Tempest. It's funny, I hear a little thunder outside as I say that. Is the name that
and the universe said yes.
Yes. It's one of the names on my birth certificate. Tempe is a family name as well, and it was my great grandmother's name. And I chose to today actually wear my grandmother's ashes today. I have a little pendant with them, so she is with me also. And it was her mother.
Hey, you ain't looking ashy. How you do that?
No, here we go. Ha! You never know what's under the surface, right? But yes, so Tempe, I love. I was called that name as a child. It was my great grandmother's name, and it's become important to me. I think one, because it was kind of easy to say as a little girl, right? Tempe is easy to say, but it was a piece of legacy that I was given to be able to hold her name. And while I didn't get a chance to meet her in person, the stories of the things that she did and the way that she did them, especially now, are really resonating with me. And I'm feeling those connections. She was an educator as a mother, and that is what she did, being in the home. But she stood very, very tall for her age in the era. I think she's 5'11", and would use all of the resources in the neighborhood. When my grandmother grew up, just a tiny little town in Ohio, one of the only Black families. So just having that story and having her name for me feels so good, because it's something passed down, and it's something tangible with a story and something to hang on to. But I've been saying, it's like sand. It's enough that it can turn into something else. So that was the gift I was given. And then Charles is a name as well. Like we all studied what each of our names meant. So Charles is the manly is the meaning of Charles, or man-like. And so I'm really comfortable with my divine and sacred masculine energy, the energy that lays the bricks, doesn't just think of the design. And so I enjoy having that name as well, and carrying my father's name and his tradition too of actually bricklaying. That was my grandfather's job. He was a bricklayer and a pastor. So yes, lots of weight in a name, but you put it where you want and need it best.
It's funny. There's so many places I can go, even when we talk about wealth and recognizing what we own, what we're carrying, who we are. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you want to, well, I'm going to ask, and you have freedom to say, nope, I'm not doing it. You want to tell us what the other names are in your birth certificate?
Oh, yeah. So my first name is Shannon. And so my full name is Shannon Tempest Charles. I have many names, and pretty much everyone at this point who knows me knows there's another name there they may not know. And I was given, this one's a fun one for this conversation. So I was named for a friend of my father's, but I also was given that strategic American naming system that many Black families partake in, which is where the family names are in there. But just as many families now are choosing what we would call gender neutral names. Now we don't really have to call them gender neutral. It's a name. You can put it on anyone, right? But the same was happening with sort of race neutral, which is code for white sounding Anglo-Saxon names. Because
or government name, or slave name.
Exactly. The given name, the name you didn't pick. But I love Shannon. The Shannon River is a body of water. And I like to look into, like I said, the etymology of names and the meaning of names. And Shannon, I love it. I say that Shannon applies to jobs, and then Tempest shows up, and then usually the customers talk to Tempe. So it's so I have gotten a number of interviews that my septum piercing and my once bald head and chocolate skin might not have gotten me.
Thank God for Shannon.
So Shannon Charles answers the phone. And for those of you who listen and do not watch this podcast, you may have your ideas about who Shannon Charles is. But deeper conversation and opening the eyes. Wow. And it's all one being. I think that's what I love about having many names is it represents all of these different things and places and all these different codes. But we're talking about the same entity that's like hanging out in this body for however long, so it's all me. It used to be a point of fragmentation. It's not. My motto now is defragment your life. Just 1 foot in, 1 foot out just actually means 2 feet grounded. There may be in two different bodies, but it's still 2 feet that are rooted, right? So
your legs are still connected to you anyway. However you stand, you're still connected to your legs and your feet. So yeah.
And as my mother says, she always says, wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are. We both are very nomadic. We've lived in many different places. I've moved over 25 times to 25 different homes in less than 30 years. But wherever you go, there you are. You're still going to find you and all your government names and all your chosen names wherever you end up.
And that's the beauty, because I didn't know the story about your names and the things you're saying, but on the show I asked people to share their names because it's very important. Your names hold a powerful energy, connects us to our roots. Yours connects you to your grandmother. Even without the name, we are our grandparents and great grandparents. We are our ancestors. There's something about that name that just amplifies that energy. The other question I want to ask you about name that you said, which I find very fascinating, that you said almost everybody in your family is changing their name. What was the thinking behind that?
I think it's been slightly different for each person, but I have noticed that there is this relationship between being addressed properly and the name change. So my uncle made a shift in his name once he took on an African name as he was getting deeper into his roots and lineage. And I believe this was even in the probably late 70s. Late 70s and the 80s, he took on another name and still uses both happily. But that was a part of his sort of marking his awakening. And my mom shifted the spelling of her name. Her name is Michelle, and it was, spelled Michelle. And people just, Mitchell, Michelle, Michelle. And she's like, And so she took on the French spelling, M-E, capital S-H-E-L-L-E, Michelle. And so now it does very much represent her whimsy. And so this process of renaming, and no parent ever really, from what I witnessed, no parent was ever upset. When I switched and my whole family calls me Tempe, I'm sure there's some of them that are like, your first name is Shannon, but for these people who all have called me Tempe to then, go off to college or go to school and choose to take on Tempest, no one was upset. It was, this is her telling us who she is now. That's a normal part of the development, is that at a certain point you'll say, hey, this is who I am now. So I feel really grateful that my family has that tradition. I think there's a long tradition of Black people in America renaming themselves. I mean, Malcolm X I remember being obsessed with Malcolm X just because he changed his last name X. Like I remember as a child, I was like, oh, yeah. I was at that age where I wanted to be called Ariel and Rose and whatever the Disney character was. So this idea, I'm like, wait, you can say who you are. Right. That was massive. That was powerful to me. So I'm grateful. I think my family is probably a little more open to the whole process of saying who you are and becoming, because of that tradition that's been started within us. So.
Thank you for taking us on that journey. And I see how it even applies with the conversation, because we get to redefine and we get to declare and define our life the way we want to define what we're living with. But before we do that, we're going to stay on that sort of name thing. So that people is like, who is this Shannon Tempest woman talking about Black wealth? I mean, what does she know? I think it's just bringing all sort of people talk about stuff they have no idea about. But you're an intuitive with an MBA. What does that mean?
Great question. Every day I wake up, I ask that question. What does it mean today to have these many things be true at once? Well, I love understanding how things work and how things flow. I think intuition, I started with studying psychology, which is the more accepted practice of intuition. Any kind of study is, because intuition does in fact use information, as we say it doesn't, but it does. It uses information that perhaps our more practiced five senses may not be fully tapped into, but it does use information. And so this idea of being interested in why and how things flow and how we can as beings participate in that flow. So whether or not that is us guiding it, being in flow, which is, the psychological term when you're doing something you love to do and you like can't hear anyone talking to you, you don't realize time passes. So how do we get into that space? And then how, really the question I asked is, I watched adults, as a little kid and in school, and as I got older, and I'm like, everybody's working all the time. We're working. We're working and we're selling things. And I loved business because, again, to me, that was a way to name yourself. I could create something and it had value, and then I could sell it. That process for me felt so good. I used to sell my toys. I sold colored Q-tips. I sold anything I could get my hands on. I was into this. And so the intuitive piece, how does this all connect? Anyone who does stocks, and we'll get honest with you, we'll tell you there's some intuitive energy to that. All intuition is an acknowledgement of the senses that are not empirical. Right. It's acknowledging the non-empirical abilities. And at this point, even neurologists acknowledge that. And so really even that definition is not in full. So I want to use all my faculties, right? The first thing you learn in business even is use all you've got, right? The first thing you learn when you're talking about being a good steward is use all you have. So for a long time, with a father that was a priest and growing up being surrounded by religion and spirituality, and knowing I had this relationship with commerce and with participating in it actively, and in an empowered way, I didn't like having my world separate. It was so challenging for me. I couldn't understand why would I spend Sunday and then my father his entire life studying this for the other 6 days of the week, and 5 of those days are going to be working towards something that allegedly doesn't relate to this thing on the sick. Like, that economically didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me that the people who are meditating and doing these things that were grounding were in the monasteries and in the high rises. And I'm like, okay, I know this is happening somewhere in the middle. I can't be the only one. And eventually, I think what happened, the same thing that I hope happens to all of us, that we just get tired of running back and forth between the versions of ourselves. And I decided to just surrender. I mean, getting an MBA after having been an educator, people kind of scoffed and were like, why are you, I can't believe that you're going to do this. You teach children, but the people, you're supposed to be for the people.
Why would you go educate yourself? Right. You're not one of the people you're supposed to be part of. For.
Well, and then there's this challenge. I grew up in Berkeley, right? I grew up in a place where so much of the world is going to look at this and say, wow, you're brave to be an MBA that admits you're an intuitive. But actually, I'm more brave being an intuitive admitting I have an MBA. and that is the thing. In my world, I grew up in Berkeley. I grew up among the real hippies. Like, the flowers weren't plastic. We're composting, our all of our waste, like, I'm talking about serious people without bathroom doors level hippie, and I bless them. That was not my household, but I grew up in Berkeley. And so to be the kid on the block that had sort of the New York state of mind, and like me and my best friend are like selling candy at school and trying to figure out how we can raise money for pets and, all kind of things, we were the anomaly, we were the unusual ones, but I just could not reconcile with the fact that there was not room for you to be spiritually well and to participate in the world. I was always uncomfortable being anywhere that said, don't be of the world. And I'm like, oh, but why would I be here then? I don't know. You know, I since have matured in the way that I hear that statement and can understand what it means. But I wouldn't have been able to get my MBA had I not used any of my intuitive capabilities. I mean, I don't see how I could have. I can't imagine graduate school.
So many thoughts are going on.
Graduate school, I had flashbacks.
I see. So you've managed to bring those two worlds together, which for me, I think that's what the spiritual journey is about, to marry the physicality and spirituality to this whole thing about oneness, that everything is connected, nothing is separate. But in this world of capitalism, we have to separate it. But let me not go ahead of myself, because let's start really grinding down. So we're asking the question, what is Black wealth? And I invite listeners, to share your thoughts about what you think Black wealth is, what it means to you, what wealth means to you. It'd be good to hear what you have to say, and feel free to share your questions. How do you define wealth?
Well, wealth in personally, right? There are a few different levels of wealth. There is wealth as a whole. I would define it as anything that has value and exchange of value. So that means, I guess it makes life challenging for me, because that means everything that I can make useful. Now, in a capitalist society, that sounds very dangerous, because that sounds like commodification about to happen, right? And it can become that. But for me, my grandmother being the griot, so if you're not familiar, the storyteller of our family, she held all of the story. I mean, that woman knew everything that happened in our family. So for me, that is wealth, all of those stories. I can't tell you for a fact, until I look at the DNA page, exactly what tribe my family's from, right? So I don't have that. But what I do have is immediate stories of the things that we've done along the way, and names and some dates. And so that is wealth, having that information. I have, I could put a dollar amount to how much education I have. I won't do that, but I have everything that I have learned there. And every connection I've made with all of the people there, some of them, names I can't even drop because of the level that they sit or stand at in society. That's wealth, right? If something needs to be done or something needs to be moved, I have a place to go. So for me, wealth is really opportunity points, points of exchange and value. And they're all over the place.
So how you define wealth, I don't think that's how they would define it in business school. Paid a lot of money to get a different definition, right?
Well, it's kind of funny, because I didn't. I mean, when you get,
well, you didn't pay a lot of money, or
I paid well, that's a lot. It depends. Paid. There was lots of money exchanged for my education, and did I arrive at a different answer? No, I didn't. Wow, sit down and do accounting. I encourage everyone to take an accounting class. That will blow your mind. You will learn that because everything has a dollar value. And the reason that tax accountants make the money that they do, and I think they should, the reason that they do is because they have learned how to convert that value into a dollar amount, and how to, relieve you from paying more taxes than you need to. And that's legally, that's what they're here to do. They're here to make sure the government gets their cut and you get yours, but what you learn in business actually is that the successful entrepreneur sees value beyond just cash flow. If you get stuck on cash flow, that is actually how you get these quick in and out businesses, because cash flow has value, but not if the cash isn't moving. right? It's value is almost a verb, right? If something's not in motion,
That's what's called currency, right?
exactly,
Currency.
current, it
Moving.
moves.
It's got to keep
It
moving.
moves. This is why I always say this is actually why it makes sense for us to be upset about billionaires, because we're like, something's not right. Because it's true, things that don't move and circulate aren't alive, right? So, so yeah, I love that we see social capital. Oh my goodness. Oh, oh.
You're having a flashback.
For just an illustration for perspective, okay? So you have two businesses, and these are examples you get in the MBA too. You take a marketing class, we'll talk about this. Okay, you have two businesses. One business has a lot of cash. We'll even say not even a whole lot. We'll say they have $100,000 cash that they can work with. They're a small business right now. You really don't need that much to start, but $100,000, great. You got $100,000 to move with. Cool. Business number two knows 100,000 people. Where's the wealth? Who cares about $100,000? Because 100,000 people has actually a greater value because they can move more than that $100,000 can ever move. Now, that's a huge oversimplification because we haven't said where is it going to move, how is it going to move, and all of that. But if you when you get that sort of illustration and you begin to see potential, and what value really is it's just like liquidity, right? Is the ability to turn something valuable into cash. It's like social liquidity, right? It's like, how can you look at your network, right? Look at your network and see, okay, how valuable is my network? How quickly can I mobilize my people for a vision? How quickly can we onboard one another together and really make things moving? And honey, if there is anything that Black people can do across the globe,
it can move stuff.
It is move ideas.
Yes.
And we're in the information age and we know how to move ideas. We're the griots. Storytelling origins came. I mean, I would love to find out how many, like, what an untapped resource. You think about people looking for social media media people to work for them, and you think about, if I remember in Atlanta back when we could go out into the wild, you would always see people, street teams, handing out flyers of things going on, and in the grocery store, the person you met. I mean, that word of mouth factor has value. If it didn't, we would not contribute so much to the moving of currency if we didn't have some sort of inherent value, which we all do. I know it's upsetting, people don't like it, but we all have inherent value.
Yes, we do.
Sorry, guys.
We've been taught that we don't, so that we put ourselves in places where we can be consumed for somebody else's wealth.
Right.
So it's just so many places I want to go. So when I listen to what you're saying, I hear some people saying, well, that's all well and good, and is that whatever, that's all well and good. Let me keep it that way. But we live in a capitalistic society where you need the dollar. It's all about the dollar. America only knows green. That's the only color America knows. And in the Western world, you got to have money, you got to have property, you got to have land. And so there's that part. And then this other part where what you're saying, and with the theme, this title, we're asking the question, what is Black wealth? Can you tie both together? Is it really necessary to have Black wealth, or are we trying to, all the we's, the non-physical we's as well, who are listening, in that question, is there a sort of reframing that is being teased out so what we can see wealth beyond? Well, this is a capitalistic society. If you ain't got the money, your business, you're going to go bankrupt.
Well, I think if you have a choice, you have a choice. So it starts with the choice. And the question is, what kind of life do you want to have?
Mm.
Now, not what things do you want in your life, but what sort of life? What sort of life? What kind of life do you want to have? Do you want to have the kind of life where you are kind of digging the endless hole? Or do you want to have a life where there is, a joyful destination? I mean, I won't even go into all the options, but you have to ask that first.
Right.
I have tried on for size the belief system of capitalist wealth exclusively, and I will say capitalism as it's practiced, because we're not doing capitalism as it was written. That's a whole nother, that's like somebody's dissertation. But
talk about that for a minute.
So capitalism as it's practice. So capitalism is just ultimately, it's the idea that one can have private ownership of the things they create in a general sense, right? That's where it's supposed to go. What we have right now is all these sorts of isms and a caste system that was placed on top of that. And so my understanding is that no matter what type of system we have, if a caste system is on top of that, because that's what racism is, a racial caste system. You could look, there's a great website, I'll have to see if I can link it, but they even show a map of by shade and by ethnicity. You can track numerical, like dollar amounts and access to goods and things. I mean, it is a stacked caste system. So we put that on top of anything. It doesn't matter if you have kumbaya underneath. It's not going to work. So I can't even fully critique it because all of this other stuff is in the way. So capitalism, the idea of being able to own what you create and to have for you to give it, to appraise the value of it, and then for it to happen in that exchange, there's not actually a problem with just that happening. In fact, if that was actually happening, especially with Black artists and performers, you wouldn't have complaints right now. No one would be upset because people would be able to get into the market, show what they have to offer, find the people who want to find them, and then that exchange would be quick and it would be done. Because we don't have that. Many of us feel like we don't have wealth. I have tried to believe that I don't have wealth. I've already gone down that path. I've gone down the path of believing that I did not have enough, and of doing that, sitting down and like doing the math of how long it would take to become a billionaire. I've done all of that. And what I found is it did not give me anything that actually helped me meet a goal. In fact, what it actually did is not only did it give me analysis paralysis, but it decreased my own value to myself and to everyone around me because I was spinning.
That's right.
So the knowledge that I did have that I could exercise, the information that I did have, the books that were available, the resources that were available, I didn't engage them. And so I realized, oh my gosh, white supremacy is working. Oh no, I've wasted 3 years trying to sit at a table of people that I don't want to sit with. That's not helpful. That's not gonna, that's not working.
Because in buying to that idea of I'm not wealthy, I'm not worthy, I don't have value, have to do this in order to be valuable, that believe in the illusion, the lie actually creates more the mindset to see like nothing I do will be enough.
Right.
But the shift in consciousness and the mindset itself, it's really an access to or a channel to tap it into the wealth and a wealthy way of thinking. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes. I knew that even at the greatest point was realizing that even if all of the barriers were on top of my capabilities, even with at every turn I made, white supremacy was going to meet me at the door. It would not do me any good to agree with it every time. So I knew that I had to get whatever I needed. And for me, it was an MBA. And in hindsight, I learned actually afterwards, I'm like, oh, there was a different way. But we could look back and I could think, okay, what information do I need? What would empower me personally to move forward and to create how I define wealth? And did I even define wealth the way that everyone defined it? So one of the things I was saying is like, we're like this body that we got, we are a mobile device. We literally are a mobile device for our spiritual energy. And it's hanging around outside us, and they put just a little bit of it inside of this body. Okay. So when you get a mobile device, if you open it up, there are a bunch of apps that come on it, and you may not need all of those apps. Some of those apps you're going to uninstall, because even though you didn't install them, they do take up data, they take up space, and some of them are running silently. I worked in mobility, so I would go to many clients just to help them. Yes, sure, ma'am. Little old ladies working in their shops and helping them take off these apps so that they could free up more space. So the device that they got would actually
that was pre-installed through schools and churches and parents and all that, right?
There's a lot that we have as Black people, wherever you ended up in the diaspora. I like to say sons and daughters of the diaspora, because this is a weight that's on Black people, but it's also impacting everyone else. And the mistake we make about white supremacy is that it's only impacting Black people, and it's screwing everyone.
Everybody.
Everyone.
Even the oppressor is getting screwed by his own oppression.
Exactly. It's this vicious, ugly cycle that's not working out for anybody in the grand scheme of things. Nobody's actually hitting the metrics. So I'm seeing actually that this question,
I want to put that question
really ties in here.
Yeah, it's really, that's not what I meant to do. India was like, hey. That's a good question. Afi said there's a difference in how Black households traditionally treated wealth versus white homes. Do you believe we have to redefine this premise to re-educate the next generation?
I think, if you look at this generation across race and class, I think that is natural. There's those who can't pivot don't make it. I mean, and this season is showing us that right here and right now. We have this unique ability to also be, the internet really did something, right? Because we can move and shake and buy things without our race being disclosed.
Right.
That's really an interesting ability now. So we can play around with our finances, our digital monies. And this is why there's so many digital currencies and Black digital currencies. Please look into Black digital currencies. They are popping up as well. But so the long answer and short answer is yes, because it is natural, ideally, for every generation to get a better understanding. I think we have to get clear on our principles. I think this is true across all groups, but I think having household principles. When's the last time if you're a parent, and I'm very curious as an early childhood educator, right? When is the last time you had a conversation, not just about money and is there enough, is there not enough, but what is money to you? Because money is anything that can be exchanged as currency. So I know at the beginning of COVID, I was not going into a grocery store, but I had a hankering for fresh eggs. I have a friend who has a chicken. I was going to make a cake. I traded the cake I made with her eggs for, so that was money. In that moment, that was money. And so what we need to get clear about is how we're defining wealth, how we're saving, how you define it, because that's what the individual tribes do, right? That's what each even country says, oh, this is what we have to offer, so we're going to call it valuable. I think once upon a November, one place is selling potatoes. Potatoes aren't valuable there, so they trade with the neighboring. So we have to define wealth for ourselves first. Yes, understand where you live in the language, but first define it in your group, and then define it in your community.
Right, and even if we don't define it for ourselves first, be open enough to uninstall the apps that were pre-installed.
Yes.
Because it's to their benefit. I buy a phone, you tell me I have 128 gigs, but when I really look at it, I only have 100 or something. It's like, wait a minute. You have on the box that my memory is 128 gigs, but you've used like whatever percentage of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I love the question that Afi asked. It's like when she said, do you believe we have to redefine this premise to re-educate the next generation? And yes. And what you were saying about we have to define it for ourselves first, it's all about how we're thinking. You said something else, and I really wanted to use into a question too. It's like, even if you accept that no matter what you do, white supremacy is always going to be there to kind of like hold you down, that is still a mindset too. It's like, so let's just go with the idea, well, I'm always going to be oppressed by this white supremacy mindset ideology. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy myself. Mm-hmm. Or I can say I'm going to always be oppressed by this white supremacy ideology. There's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in your 20. My future looks really bleak. Then you're 30. Oh, what's the point anyway? 40, 50, 60. This is a horrible world. There's got to be hell for these people. It's like wherever you find yourself, if you can accept what is, that starts to change how you see the world. So it's this mindset change that we really need. And so it's not just defunding the police officers. It's not just getting leaders like Trump out of office, because there are people who still believe in that we don't even know about. However, if we agree with what they say is true, we are investing in the mindset that is oppressing us. Mm-hmm. And, when you were talking about how we can move things around, I think of a battle that happens on IG, where the artists will go back to back and they were doing their songs. And I think I saw Snoop and DMX, a few days ago. That was like 480,000 people viewing. Now, there's many ways you can look at that. Some people could say, we're not making the money. Black people are not making the money, but we're just giving our content to IG. Then, I don't know, I'm sure you have DJ D-Nice. I'm sure you've heard of him. Yes. Mm-hmm. And he started doing something. He was feeling depressed. He was sad. He was teary. Like, what is going on? I had all these things planned. I had all this event that I was looking forward to, and now I can't do it. And he said he just got up to say, you know what? I just play some music, because he used what he had. And now he's a name that will always be remembered, and people are using. He now has a different brand to keep the exchange going. Now, I just wanted to say that because I was feeling as you were talking, but because mindset is often the hardest to change. Somebody who is listening to you and saying, okay, well, I'm inherently good. I am worthy. But there's still capitalism as it is right now, and they don't want us to succeed. They're always going to hold you down. They're not going to give you a loan when you need it. So if you can't get a loan, how can you expand? And you're saying, well, you have to change your mindset, even though there's this white supremacy idea that's going to hold you back. And they say to you, Tempest. I was trying to call you Tempe now. I'm like going between the two. Tempest. What's the point if no matter what I do, I'm never going to win?
So the Buddhist in me says there is none, dear. I'm sorry. I mean, that is it's so disappointing that that's the cosmic joke, but it really is. But really, truly, I mean, if you were to sit down and to ask I won't even give the list of civil rights leaders, but if you were to ask any of them this question, it'd be offensive. The only reason you're asking it is because it's about you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you caring about your own life, and you've been taught that that's not okay, that there has to be 15 other people, 17 other people. No, you have this. That's white supremacy that's telling you that you don't have a right to have a great life. And yes, they're going to try to get in the way every time. Just like when you play football, there's always going to be another team. We are sandwiched in this place of duality.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we look back at, we look at this time across so many different platforms. I've talked to people about this pandemic or plandemic or what's going on demic. And it has helped reactivate things that were already in us.
Right. You have a question like that.
There were the wisdom is here. If you talk to your grandparents, they come in and they say, oh, we did that before and this happened. And that is because, like, my dad is a singer. He used to always say, there are only so many letters in the musical alphabet. There are only so many notes you can play. So eventually you're going to hear a song that is going to sound a little familiar. Now, it's up to us to change the lyrics to that song and to make those lyrics fit with where we are now. So there's, especially talking about wealth and talking about economics, I used to hate, when the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. I used to hate that because I was like, oh, that's so problematic, but I love it. Here's why. Because if you really read and you do close reading, the love of money, of just a currency, is the root. Because what will happen is, if you're stuck on money as being the only value, is that your job can say, work from home. I will call you at all times because you're always home. Saturday is at Saturday. Saturday is now Friday plus. What is Sunday? You can't go to church. If you think that currency is the definition of wealth alone, just that dollar bill, then you're going to move and shake in that direction, and you're not going to do deeper thinking. So it'll make you get yourselves into deeper scams and not think more. It'll make you go into a fear place or a yes place. To me, if you get big feelings around money, if you're like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome, or oh my God, this is going to be terrible, either way, you need to relax and not decide. If you have big feelings about a financial thing, you need to not decide, because you've already exchanged value, energetic value of your excitement. So stop right there. You've already spent money right there. You've already spent some. So wait, let your body settle. Let your physical body get off of that high, and then tap in. Does this make sense? Does this feel right? Can I energetically afford this? Because sometimes you can afford the dollar amount, but you've got so much fear pent up around it, it's not going to do you any good. Like, the most anxiety I ever felt was when I was earning the most money from someone else.
Why was that?
I worked in tech. I loved it and I hated it. I was in corporate sales, and I was, I loved what I was doing at the beginning, and it felt really good. But then I got the love of money. I got a little taste. And I was like, oh, when I got some, and once you want some, it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, right? You give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for some milk, right? So I'm like, okay, this is kind of good. And then all of a sudden, at every 15th of the month, now you would think it'd be the first of the month or the end of the month, because that's when your contracts are due. But no, they train you to get anxious at the 15th of the month, because that's when you have to say your numbers out to everybody. And when you're caught on the dollar amount, you get anxious, because now you've created something so big, it feels impossible. Oh, well, I need this. And since I have that, I'm going to need that. And if I'm not getting money, it's not. So I wasn't learning that my peers who were doing really well and not feeling anxious about the job, they weren't worried about, it was not that they were just better. They weren't worried about the money. They let themselves forget about that part. And they focused on something in particular they were going to work on, or something in particular that week they were going to learn. They found value elsewhere, and then the natural revenue generating behaviors just flowed out of them without the anxiety. So but that was for them. So it's really, I think we have to understand that white supremacy relies on us believing that there is a method, and that there is a proven method, and that the only way to get there is that method, right? It's a system. So systems usually refer you to other systems. So we need to tap into the system that actually fits with what we have to offer, what we have access to. And this does not mean that there's not an access problem. There are people like me who feel inspired by helping with that access problem. I'm happy to go get degrees that you won't sit through to get, so that I can sit in a room and help you look through documents and understand how to read this gibberish, right? But I also can't let you think that you're stuck, because the thing is, if you think you're stuck, it's just like I say about our ancestors. I promise you, our ancestors who were enslaved did not see themselves as slaves while they were freeing themselves. They had to see themselves as wealthy human beings with a right to live. And so the same goes for wealth. It does not mean it's going to be easily accessible. It doesn't mean we're operating in a system that is going to be advantageous. However, especially if you have the wherewithal to believe in Noah and an ark, I can't imagine how you would feel comfortable staying underneath. So what does this mean? If you feel like you don't have a lot of social capital, if you feel like you're not around supportive people who can teach you something, who can help you understand this language, to help you learn what rights you do have. You might know, get this, most of us know more rights that we don't have than the rights that we do have. Another product of white supremacy. We don't know what we can ask for. How many of you out there in the world, when you take off a day of work, tell your employer why you're not coming in? Did you know you don't have to do that? It's literally none of their business. You have sick days and vacation days. You just tell them which day to mark off, and you tell them they'll see you when they see you. But we're addicted to the love of the money itself. And so let me tell you, this is what the wealthy people are out here doing. Now, I get not everyone feels that they can afford to do that. But if at mass, we all empowered ourselves to do that, if it became a big enough body that decided that we had value and we exercised it all at the same time, suddenly there would be no choice but a response. We've seen that. These protests are not working. They're going low and slow. Believe me, they are going slow. But we're moving. It takes a while for us to learn to move as a body. But when we do, every time contact has been made.
And if this may not be conscious to whoever they call the founding fathers, the idea of white supremacy is a belief that you have value. So I have to do everything in my power to make sure you don't believe that about yourself. Because if you recognize who you are, your value, your gifts, your worth, my riches is threatened. And that's what, so as long as we keep saying that's the case. Now, I love what I think you spoke to earlier, Afi said here, and I think it's a very good point. She said, are you saying the pandemic is helping us in that redefinition of returning to that bartering the way our ancestors did? Yes. And the thing about,
well, and before the pandemic too, the gig economy did that. I mean,
the pandemic helped us see even more so. It's like it was a magnifier. And it's also a lesson, isn't it? Like when we gather together, when someone has an idea and say, what would it be like to bring Jill Scott and Erykah Badu together, since we're all in the house anyway? And then they come up with the idea, and there's a lot of other things that happen, but that's all part of it. Where anyway, I won't go into that. But when I think of the battle between Jill Scott and Erykah Badu, it was a coming together of geniuses, of talents, of love, of sisterhood. And there was me watching it was like, oh my God, I left feeling more of myself. I don't know if there are any of the battles that happened on IG was like, oh, I'm going to show them. I'm going to tell them I'm the best. I think the ones I saw, they came to just share their gift and honor one another. And so I want to do this because we've said a lot, and I think it's important to sort of break down no, I like your idea to start uninstalling the apps that was installed in our mindset from birth or as we were growing up in order to be able to shift the mindset. And it's not, I don't necessarily think that, okay, you got to uninstall first and then you have to change your mindset. They can happen side by side.
Oh, yeah. You can have several apps open at once. That's the crazy thing about this device. Like, we have to remember, so let's start by recognizing any device you can touch was designed based off of you. So if your device can do it, there's something in you that had a similar capability. So start there. Start there.
Okay, wait. No, hold on. Don't go yet. That was simply powerful that it can be missed. Say that again.
So any device, and I mean every device, from a window to a table to a laptop, any device you can touch, you can interact with, was designed based on something you can do. In some way, you can do it, and maybe it can do it more efficiently, but not necessarily better. Better is relative. Better is the subjective part, right? So same goes for these things in your mind that you've learned. I would say if there's one app all of us should uninstall, uninstalling this app changed my entire life, okay? And it's a hard one because I got into a lot of arguments over it. The first app to uninstall is that there is any correlation between effort and earnings. There is zero. I mean, it's insignificant. If you were to put it into SPSS, my nerds out there, I love you. Shout out to Black Neuro Week. If there is so close to zero correlation between the amount of effort and work you put in and the amount of money you make. And this is a cross race.
I proved that to myself, I can tell you. And the last few months, it's like I'm recognizing part of the app, there's still some is attached to other apps. And it's a constant uninstalling because I, without even knowing, think the more work I do, the more money can come in and I'll be tired. I mean, I enjoy working. I love what I do. But, okay, I'm going to be really transparent here. About a week ago, because I kept thinking of effort and the money that's coming in and going out, it's like they're not matching. And during my spiritual practice, I just decided to really sit and get to the bottom of it. And what I heard was from Spirit, for those who are saying from who, not CNN, they can answer this question. The way I thought about money and time was the same. Money and time. There was not enough. I have to do. I mean, Spirit said, write it down. And I made the list. And I was like, oh my God. I was sad that I've been living like that. And at the same time, I had compassion for myself. I don't know where I picked that up from. It really doesn't matter. But when I was able to see what I was doing, it's like, so the problem wasn't even money or time. It's my thinking about what I think I need to do, which wasn't what I needed to do. And I didn't understand why I wasn't getting the result that I expected. And I tell you, the way I'm so different right now. The way I'm working, there's so many things, emails and stuff. I'm like, no, because I feel like I'm in this process of reshaping. And where I feel I got to go send that email. Oh, I got a show coming up. Oh, I got to reply to that. It's like, no. Sometimes I'm just saying, no, I'm not doing it, to develop a new habit. And second, to check in with my body. Do I have the bandwidth right now to go do that? And now I actually set appointments. And as I'm putting it into my calendar, I'm thinking to myself, something may happen and I don't show up. Because for me in the past, it was, if I don't show up for that appointment, if I don't do the things that I said I was going to do, then, I'm a bad person. I'm not of integrity. There's just this judgment. So that app that you're talking about, efforting and making money,
uninstall it. So the advantage is there's an upgrade. If you can uninstall that, and if you want to upgrade your whole system, the more accurate, first, it's understanding that your relationship with money Is your relationship with love? Is your relationship with time? Is usually your relationship with food. Okay. So, because
And
those
with
are all,
self.
yes. So these are all consumption is consumption is consumption is consumption.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
way that you consume is just the way that you consume. So it's important. I think one benefit to learning I'll call it American and Eurocentric way financial system is that it will teach you about energy flow, and it can minister to you if you let it. So it's a great way to learn about it. With soft eyes, if you will. Don't get too hung up on I got to do it this way and here, but learn about it in a way that allows you to learn more than just about money from it. Okay. A lot of people feel themselves get really inspired by the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that, it's some people start there. I think because it can help you get out of your mindset of thinking that there's a correlation, but knowing that you have uninstalled this idea that you're going to just effort your way into money. Like, just think about where might we have learned that the harder we work, the more likely we could own the place. Honey, we still ain't got 40 acres, so you can let that go. And now the, people laugh and say, the thing that white supremacy hates is joyful Black people. I mean, that's why we became caricatures, because there's nothing more. Yeah, like, think about it. Even as adults, when you're frustrated at a child and they have the nerve to not care, like,
right. Did you hear me talk to you?
The audacity that you would find joy while I'm trying to chastise you, and that's a loving relationship. So
right.
a relationship based on hatred, the fuming, and so once you uninstall that app, one, you can let go of capitalism and feeling like you need to buy in or buy out in any way. You're not so married to it. Two, you get the chance to say, okay, well, what's valuable to me? What is worth my time, my money, my love, my food, my energy exchange? What's worth it? When I say, when I do tarot readings and intuitive readings, I put my cash. I didn't used to put my cash up and my Venmo up, but then people would ask all the time and it became like distracting. I couldn't stop the flow. I was like, this is really funny. I have to practice what I preach. And I had a mentor who said, never make it hard for people to give you money. It was profound. Alan Davenport, wherever he is, he was and still is an older white man from Alabama, and he loved to talk about how he grew up poor and then worked his way up at AT&T. And that is one thing, if I learned nothing from him, he said, Tempe, never make it hard for people to give you money. And what did he mean? Some of us have to listen to years of Abraham Hicks to get there, but allow a container to receive what people will naturally want to flow to you when you give them the value of who you are. Nowadays that means link in bio. That means here's my cash app.
I know, right?
And so putting that up there and being comfortable saying, here's how you can circulate something in my direction. It empowered people to, one, flow money in my direction. Cool, that's great. But also to see that it's not taboo to ask for exchange or to allow exchange. The fact that you can't, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to disclose your salary here. No, you have a right to talk about yourself. Why? I see why that would be a problem. And typically people who are in right consciousness, I don't mind. I can hear about someone else doing the same job, earning more. First of all, I'm a woman in America, so I hear that all the time.
Tell me something new.
It's not new. But what it does is it empowers me to say, so this is telling me how they value these skills and ability. And then I'm going to play dumb and I'm going to walk in the door and say, I have those skills and abilities. Awesome. And I'll sit and I'll wait. But you have to be willing to do that. If you have not uninstalled the efforting thing, the effort syndrome, then you will get caught in, I got to learn more. I got to do more. And that's how I got to this mini degree script,
I want to ask you, I want to say something here because, you know, there's a part of me that's feeling like, well, and I really do like how we started, but I think I'm over analyzing, thinking, well, well, no, not we. I should have started with what Black people do that they're not doing and why Black people are not wealthy, which just even saying that doesn't feel right because everybody knows what they're doing. They already know what they're doing. You know, I don't need to tell you if I have a restaurant and I'm serving food, I don't have to tell you why you're hungry. You know, you just want to eat. So the thing is, actually, I think I lost my thoughts. it was a good thought too. It's gonna come back. Okay, what's the last thing you said again? Do you remember what you said last?
Man, I'm on your journey.
It was such a good thought. Okay, it's gonna come back to me. Oh, no. Okay, so I go to the next question and it will come back when you start talking. What I hear you say, what I know to be true. There it is. It came back. Efforting is simply an affirmation to self. Well, no, let me phrase that. Efforting, like the more I do, the more money I can make, or if I don't work hard, I'm not going to make enough money. That's an affirmation to yourself that you are not enough, that you don't have the worth. Because what makes money, as you were saying about devices, are ideas. And our mind generates all sorts of ideas. Oftentimes when we look at money as the gateway or the channel, we say, I don't have the money to see that idea through. Going back to your idea of having 100,000 people or $100,000. If you have a great idea and you're committed to the idea and you believe the source of the idea that, oh, this is something that can really make a difference by having, you don't even need 100,000 people to make it come alive. So this idea of efforting is a belief on some level that I'm not enough. So if I'm not enough, I have to work hard. I have to work hard in making money. And then that mindset itself gets reaffirmed because if you're believing in not enough, you're going to end with not enough. And it's a very challenging, I know that it's not always easy to make that mind shift. So you were saying earlier about, we were talking about working side by side. What are some of the things that you will share with people right now? And I want us to continue this conversation. We may even do it like, I don't know, every other month or something, because I think it's necessary. In the kind of world that we're creating right now, 2021 is going to be interesting because there's a lot of things that are not happening right now. It's like there's how we are sowing seeds right now will determine the harvest in 2021. So what are some of the things people saying? You keep talking about uninstall this app and change my mindset, but what are some of the things that people can do, like practical, simple things to just cause? Because really, in truth, really, to make a shift doesn't require much. Just a little habit to just tilt it to the left or to the right or center.
So first, if at all possible, start with your relationship with time, right? It's challenging because once you're on the wheel, I get it. I really do empathize with how hard it is to get off of the wheel, because I will give credit to the founding fathers. They orchestrated this mess in an expert way. You know, it's been going long enough. It has momentum. And so many of us, this is why some of us who are jumping out of the wheel are getting run over by it. But us being willing to get run over by it, we are slowing the wheel down for you a little bit to be able to jump off. It sounds jacked up, but that's how it's happening. If you talk
Bruce, it's for the people,
parents, right? Our parents, like I think of my parents, and then before that, there were things they wouldn't wear or do or say in public, so that I can do and wear and say what I want to in public. So that was them kind of bump, to slow that wheel down. Like, love y'all, glad y'all still here, and thank you for taking one for the team, so to speak. But I know that somewhere, some person of the Caucasian persuasion told you to meditate, and you rolled your eyes and said, I got stuff to do today. I feel that.
No, not stuff. I got shit to do. I ain't trying to be meditating right now.
So I am going to say, as somebody from the melanated persuasion who has had to get up at the crack of dawn and had to work full days, give, if nothing else, give the first 5 minutes of your day to yourself. If you can't yet give it to a higher power and meditate, and at least to yourself. Most of us, the moment we wake up, the first hour of our day is spent planning what we're doing towards someone else's vision. And that chips away at the mind. Now, if that you do is filling you and feels good, still start your day with some silence with yourself. Because the problem with this is most of us learn meditation and learn mindfulness in the context of fixing a problem. And so what we do is we're like, excellent, I'll put my meditation salve on. I feel better, go through the day. And it becomes like coffee, except we're not consistent and we'll make our coffee every day. But then once we feel better, we stop meditating. Because we don't need to put that meditation salve over whatever was hurting, and we're feeling balanced, and we're feeling aligned, and we're feeling in flow. But go back. Like when you notice, oh man, nothing's wrong, but I'm not that meditation really worked. Jump back in. Now, why do I say this? Because every day you're turning your phone back on. And just like your phone, your mobile device, that is your body, right? Your spiritual mobile device is your body. Once you turn yourself on in the morning, you've gotten updates in your sleep, or there's something pinging you saying, hey, you need to do this update. Now, the first 10 seconds of waking up is all you have to say yes or no. Otherwise, you're going to get an automatic install. I guarantee it. I have taken medicine for anxiety and depression. I say this honestly and openly with my psych degree, because I think it's important that we acknowledge these earthbound things too. They're real. They're very real. I've gotten up with a heart rate that's going 1,000 miles per minute because when I woke up, I had given my day away so much that actually my day was going away before I even opened my eyes. And I would open my eyes in the middle of the day that I'd given to the company I worked for. And some of you may be familiar with that feeling, but if you can start saying just the first 5, that's it. First 5. If you can give yourself first 5 of the day to just sit and just nothing. Don't plan a thing, even if you have to fill it with I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, like nonsense, like just fill it with something that isn't a command, isn't what you have to do, isn't even an intention, not even an affirmation, just emptiness, because that's enough. Once you realize that even an affirmation is something, just like I say with anxiety, a lot of times we try to help someone and then we ask them, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? Hey, all exchange takes energy. Sometimes all someone needs is silence. So give yourself that first thing in the morning, that nothingness, because what'll happen is your head won't be full of all the other stuff. You'll have some space and some openness. And then once you've done that 5 minutes, since you've allowed yourself to, when you do process the things that come in your day, you can do it with a sense of you've talked to you first. So as soon as you hear yourself go, I'm so sick of these people, you'll be like, oh, but this day is mine. So wake up, first 5, me first. That is the first place to start. Now, if you get really good, take 5 at lunch. And in the middle of your day, take your day back. Make it yours. Don't answer your phone. I don't care who calls, what call. No emergency. In 5 minutes, unless the person is right next to you and you can do CPR, there is nothing you can do for any emergency. This is real. You can always, anyone can wait the length of a song. Okay? So in the middle of the day, take your next 5.
I love that.
Truly. And that's scary for a lot of us because we've been trained that every alert is an alarm. And in a place where we have a phone that's always going to alert us, I have so many notifications. If I were to get alarmed by all of them, I would literally have a heart attack. My heart would not be able to pump enough oxygen for me to even be that anxious, to be in that much alarm. So I think starting with that. Why do those things matter? Because what are you practicing? One, you're practicing right there the whole principle of effort and ownership and value not necessarily being related. You're showing yourself that intrinsically your time is worth your time. It's an equal exchange, right? And you're getting a chance to show yourself that you can hold yourself accountable. And most of us, even when you get into the 3D financial, the reason that our finances are jacked up, not just because of white supremacy, but because we don't know how to move our money and we haven't created money values. So if you think, oh, I'm bad with money, oh, I'm bad at exchange, oh, I'm bad at that. Well, if you can if you can save yourself 5 to 10 to 15 minutes a day, and you practice that, so I say just 5 for 100 days, you're like, oh, I have great discernment and I'm excellent at saving and I'm excellent at being efficient. I have created an example for myself, and then you can repeat that, right? And you've created actually you've helped your brain feel confident, right? Because what's happening is all of this white supremacy, which includes all of the obias, all of the phobias go underneath that. That puts the brain, like I said, I entered this from psychology, right? It puts the brain in the worst possible place to create effective ideas. So if you want to create the idea, right? That's like, why is it they act like, white men create everything? Because they don't have anything to do. They're lounging. When you're lounging and, when you can like lime,
Yes.
like really just, of course ideas flow. Yeah. And then, of course, you get funding because other people who are lounging and feeling casual because they're not stressed are like,
that's
sure,
right.
We'll fund your crazy idea. Amazon,
right.
Great. So we now have to, even while we're feeling anxious, it sucks. I didn't say it was fair. It's not fair, but it will also mean that when the shift comes, because I am of the camp that believes that the shift will come and is coming.
It's happening.
We will be more resilient. We will be the short basketball player who's good because they trained harder and we're not tall. You know what I'm saying? So the difference is we actually are tall. Just someone convinced us we were short. so let's train in this. And instead of using, I don't want to use my strong Black women to effort through and work anyway. I'm using my strong Black women to say, no, y'all want to fire me, okay? Because we can repurpose a lot of these things used against us. And for a long time, we had religions that helped us remember that. Even if we were tweaking religions given to us once to oppress us, we still were able to use them to help. And I think, we need to find that now. So take your first 5 and then find your definition of wealth. Write down your values. What do I value? What are my values? Like my family values, whatever those are. And then how do I determine wealth for myself, for my family, and then for my larger tribe? I think those actions right there will automatically cause shift because you're going to start wanting to prove it to yourself. Oh, well, I don't even really actually value this. Or do you value your money? Are you spending it in a way that says you value it? Are you moving it? Your money is, I say money always says yes. So wherever you put your money, you're saying yes to. Money only says, yep, sure.
That's it.
Yes. So everywhere you put your money is saying yes.
Money is always saying yes. Like God is always saying yes. The divine, the universe, whatever is always saying yes. Whatever. I'm not enough. Okay. I'm enough. Okay. I'm worthy. Okay. I'm not worthy. Okay. And there's so many things you said there. So I want to say the whole thing about taking 5 minutes to self. It is that it also can be looked as how we interrupt the momentum of getting up and picking up the phone and oh my God, I got this project to do and I get to work. Oh, I think I'm late. It interrupt that pattern. So we create new neural pathways And by interrupting, disrupting the pattern of some of the things that we believe that's not even our belief, we get to be open to something else, a new idea. It may be a friend might even call you and say, you know what, I was just thinking, I know you say you don't like traffic. How about drive with me today? Because sometimes we think of the spiritual practices as about that thing about efforting, the doing. In interrupting the patterns, we allow ourselves to resonate with a new way of being, different energy, different vibration. That the things that we start attracted to ourselves, we might start having pleasant customers. Might start have people, maybe the boss that you couldn't stand yesterday somehow acknowledges you today. And the more we do that, because I believe that what we're dealing with, I think in the Bible talks about we're not dealing with principalities. This is a spiritual warfare. This thing that we're going through, whether it's injustice, white supremacy, police brutality, the pandemic, the COVID-19, all of it, it's about a spiritual atoning transformation to remind us who we are. And it's not, I don't believe in some being, some entity say, I'm going to help them remember who they are. There is an intelligence. And that intelligence, it's saying, oh, there's more. This is not the way to live. What you also said about having time to lounge, like whether the white man who had time to lounge came into wealth because his father and grandfather were wealthy, it doesn't matter. The law is he has time to lounge and he gets new ideas. Like you said, doesn't mean it's fair. It really does. It doesn't. It's irrelevant. But we can learn from that. But the more we start to interrupt the patterns, the more we start to recognize, wait, I am valuable. I don't know how to really what I could do that I could really say is valuable, but that process of recognizing, it's something to be said about who I am. The fact that I can something is breathing me. I can read, I can hear.
And let your eye be big. Let your eye, that's just it. Yeah. It's the only reason this really works, this whole white supremacy thing, it wouldn't have worked on Black people if they had not really drilled in the idea of us even being individuals. Because there's something that a group of my friends and I were working on right now and trying to figure out how to make it happen. All of us are on the younger side in earth years. So we're like, okay, we might need some other folks kind of helping us out here. But one of the things that we've seen with our peers, with our white peers, is that they have this ability because of the financial wealth that they got through means of bartering and taking our social wealth and capital, is that they have this, when there's a job that's unjust, white women can leave. They can just leave. There might be a family to surround them, the son who wants to quit his job and start something, the risk, the 3D, the risk is always the same. But if you were to do the 3D traditional risk assessment, the risk that they have to leave things that aren't working seems so reduced. Well, then if we notice that, then some of us have to be willing to not be scared and willing to be those people. Like, I wonder these days, would the Underground Railroad still happen today with Black people with means, with elder Black people? Would they let us millennials in? If there was something going on with just the millennials, would Black elders let us in and let us quit our racist jobs? And I'm a little afraid that the answer is no sometimes. Mm-hmm. And what I think needs to change, and I think the reason a lot of millennials are behaving the way they are, and a lot of young Black people are really trying to surround each other, is because there was a time. I mean, we can't let, it's hard, right? We can't let our respect for the rest of our tribe only be predicated on them agreeing with us. The infighting thing is not going to work anymore, because yes, we want oneness, but the way to achieve oneness is for everyone to see themselves as whole and to move as whole. And to me, when I hear that my neighbor, especially a member of my, I'll call it color tribe, given our circumstance, right? If I see, they have a business and maybe it's struggling, or that's something that they need to shift, I ask, is there something that you need? What do you need? And maybe I don't have it, but let's mobilize some people here. And I think churches used to do that for us. And a lot of us need to look deeper into the history of this idea of church and state being separate and where it actually came from, because a whole lot of it actually happened during the civil rights movement. A whole lot of it was about breaking up Black people in church because they was like, wait a minute. Y'all are getting empowered and you're having meetings and you're feeding each other. This ain't gonna work. You know what? Churches don't like gay people. Churches don't like gay people. And all of a sudden, they're like more of it. And it's not to say that those things weren't true and didn't need to be shifted. But if you can focus on those really big, then you miss out all of the positive things that spiritual spaces and places of worship were doing for the community. And so that's a whole battle that if you focus on that with our fear both of science and religion, unfortunately, that's a battle I'm not interested in fighting. I think what makes sense is, okay, let's fill the gap. Being MBA minded, I'm like, well, let's fill the gap. If we don't have a place anymore, community centers are catching dust. They've been catching dust long before COVID, in every state and city. Everything that was community based now is really, really disjointed, and people are having kind of many ways to relate with many people, but not a consistent enough group of people to be supported by them. And so if we know that we're all impacted, that means I have to be willing to say, okay, yes to leveling the playing field. Maybe I don't agree with this person wholeheartedly, but what my dollar yes is saying to is not the fact that I might have to wait in line a little longer at this restaurant, not the fact that my product is going to take a little longer to get to me because they don't want to work through the big A shipper, and they want to be able to get it to me faster, I want it fast, but it's more important that I'm helping level the playing field and that to me. Now, to some of y'all, that's not important, and that's fine. I don't like it, but it is the way it is. But you have to ask again, what's more important to me, the right now or being a part of, like, no generation wants to be a part of the group to build up Black wealth, and that's what's frustrating. Everyone just wants to be a part of the generation that already has the established financial Black wealth, but nobody wants to be the one to, like, the first 5 years of a business, sometimes you're in the hole. Like that, but you're having fun because you're like scraping your way through and it's your passion and you care about it. So like, if you see that the millennials are the ones doing that right now, and we like getting our hands and knees dirty and building our little buses and our tiny houses and always on the internet, let us do that. And y'all can live in the big houses. Let us do that. Like, help us. Help. I think that we can come back together and give each other safe space to make aligned decisions. So I think if we can create a collective fund, quit your crazy job fund, we've got your back for 6 months fund, I think we can support one another. And yeah, they may try to burn down Black Wall Street again. That is, unfortunately, that's also how COVID works. Every virus works that way. It mutates. So guess what the body does? Mutates back. So it's our job to also
stronger.
Mutate. Yes, it's
Stronger.
our job to continue to mutate. There you go.
So if you ever
call it evolution when it's positive, right? You call it mutation when it's bad, and evolution when it's good. But it's all the same thing. It's transformation in the direction of something more aligned.
That's it. So anybody listening and saying, I don't know what my purpose is, now you know. We got to join together. And basically, for me, if I was to summarize this conversation, the main part of, maybe all of it really, it's like, this is about decolonizing our minds, to start to think differently and not even be so goal oriented. because how we sow right now will determine what the harvest is.
Mhm.
The consciousness that sows right now, if we're sowing with a consciousness of community, then that's what we're going to get. And you don't even have to wait for the harvest, because that consciousness will keep sustaining you. And you start to see other ways, like, oh my God, you start to attract people. An email comes from nowhere, like, I don't even know this person. You Google them, you find out, wow, this is legit. How did you get my name? How did you get my number? How did you know what I was doing? It's like, well, somebody that we met, blah, blah, blah. It's all about consciousness.
Yes. Taking conscious care. There it is.
Oh,
There
I
it
love
is.
that.
Taking conscious care.
That-
Yourself and the community. That's right
conscious
there.
care. Yeah, that's perfect. So, listeners, what we're talking about, initially we were saying the title, the theme was going to be conscious care, and then we kept talking. And we said, let's talk about Black wealth. And, oh yeah, but it all came around taking conscious care of one another. And we'll leave it there. We're going to continue the conversation. There's more. And I love when I meet people who draw from a deep well. I can talk all day with them, and Tempest is one of those. And if I keep talking, I'm going to activate something in her, and then she wants to add something else to it, and then she's going to activate something for me.
Momentum is strong.
Right. And then the people who are getting ready to like spend 5 minutes to themselves, like, see, this is why people can't spend 5 minutes for themselves, because y'all keep talking.
No, it's your job to take your 5 minutes. No one's gonna give you your
what.
5. You gotta take your 5.
We're doing what we want to do. What are you doing? Tempest, thank you so much. Oops, what happened? Oh, this conversation has been so nourishing. You've dropped so many gems. Alert doesn't mean alarm. There's some things I'm like, oh, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. I was like, oh, India, type that, catch that. But thank you. And I look forward to our next conversation, whether it's online or on the phone.
Absolutely.
Oh, what I didn't share earlier was where people can find you. Is it, can you tell listeners where they can find you?
Yes. So Instagram is actually the best place to check out the many different things I have going on right now. And that's at Wise Eyes Aligned, WISEYES, Aligned, ALIGNED, Wise Eyes Aligned. And that's on Instagram. I am on Facebook, but I keep most things on Instagram, and I currently have someone coding my website. So as soon as that is up and live, I will be sure to send that out to you all. But yeah, check out, whether or not you're checking in for the conscious care side of things, I am working on some at-home pre-K curriculum now that I'm piloting and working on and enjoying doing right now. But I also do work with parents and have started doing some spiritual with the emphasis on peer coaching. So if you need to be able to sit down and process the two sides or the many different sides of life, I know a lot of us don't have a person in our lives who is in the spiritual context, as well as appreciating and honoring the mental health and the financial context, and all of those existing together. So if you need that and you need support in that, reach out to me. And if it can't be me, I'm sure I can connect you with somebody else who's trusted. So.
Thank you. And for those of you who are listening to the audio, it's okay to type, and I want your confirmation. It's okay to type Wise Eyes Aligned, as in wise, yes, aligned, because that's what I was calling. I'm like, wise, yes, aligned. So don't go in there typing Wise Eye with 2 E's. It's WISEYES, aligned.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I want people to find the link in the bio.
Well, there you go. You can remember your financial. Make your money a wise. Yes.
That's it.
Keep it alive.
Oh, this has been great. Thank you very much, Tempest. Thank you, listeners. We're getting ready to release the conversation. Decolonize your mind. Remind yourself that you are worthy, you matter, and you have value. I remember Ian Levanzant once saying, if you don't know that you have value, that you matter, and how, I don't know if she said expensive you are, but you think, do you imagine how much they're selling kidneys on the black market? You have two if you have to. Some people have one. Some people are waiting for another one. You have a heart that's pumping. You can't just go buy that, no matter how much money you have in your bank account. And it's just putting things back into perspective and changing the way you've been seeing yourself, changing how you see the life. It's really about what this is about. Ade presents being you, how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world and the world in you. It is up to you. If it's meant to be, it's up to you. I love you. I bless you. I appreciate you. And I thank God for you. We're going to release the show with John Stringer, reminding you that you are welcome here. You are welcome here. That's what God, the divine, the universe, that's what you are saying to yourself. You are welcome here. That's that 5 minutes when you wake up. You're recharging your mobile device, your heart and your consciousness, your heart and your mind. You are telling yourself this is a new day and you're welcome here. Nobody can tell you don't belong because you've given that to yourself. I'll be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 p.m. UK time, for the Heart of the Matter. And join us. This is a place where I have a guest that's going to be joining me, and I get to do some soul work with things that you're going through or growing through. You get to see what's happening. If you missed last week's, check it out with Mbadi from South Africa. Just go to wherever you're listening to. If you're on Being You podcast page on Facebook, just scroll down, you see it. We're all in this together. Peace and blessings. See you on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UK. I'm out. Thank you, India. Thank you, listeners.
There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. peace. Welcome to our community.